is projecting there. Okay. All right. I knew there was something different about that. All right. So maybe you guys can hear me on the live stream now, but welcome. We are glad that you're here. We're excited to be able to host the Creation Evidence. This person, son, so that have passed song, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Boyd here. All right, Pastor Halleck.
Let's stand and sing the chorus, "Thou art worthy."
Good morning to everyone gathered. Good morning. I heard 3 good mornings. Good morning again. Good morning. Act like you're at a Colts game and they're winning. You're going to definitely let people know that you're there. And to those on the live stream, we say good morning. I'm Dr. Frederick Willis Boyd, Jr., the Senior Executive Director of Creation Evidence Expo events. It's good to be back in Grace once again. I'm still floating on cloud 9 or 10 or 11 or 12. On April 25th, I was conferred an honorary doctorate of divinity degree from Dayspring Bible College and Seminary, and I'm still floating. So God is good all the time. Well, we're going to get our expo started this morning. We have the future executive director of this ministry will be speaking to you this morning. Yes, I'm getting old. On the 29th of August, I'll be 75 years old. And I know I still look pretty good for an old man. But time is running out on this guy. So we had to plan for the future of this ministry because we still intend to bury evolution. That's our end game. We want to bury evolution, Darwinian evolution, so our children have freedom to know what the truth is. The Bible is true. Praise His holy name. And so a couple years ago, or 3 years ago, Lord, I started praying for a successor. And the speaker this morning, the Lord put him on my heart to succeed me in time. Right now he's being trained. I hope he's learning something from me, but he's a good man, good presenter, and we're so grateful that the Lord has sent him our way for such a time as this. So without any further ado, we will say more about the ministry as the week progresses. Well, let's listen to Dr. Oh, no, he's not a doctor. His wife's a doctor. Mr. David Liddy, the Assistant Executive Director of Creation Evidence Expo, is going to come and share with us on this morning in Sunday school. Let's give him a big hand as he comes. Pastor, look, I got the height on him. And since there's no white and black, we're just people of color.
Amen.
Future chief here. Amen.
Amen. All right, is this on? Oh, excellent. All right. Is the PowerPoint playing? All right. So 2 things, talking to a few people. I said, why, Pastor Boyd, and I was talking to Pastor, why weren't we here last year? There was COVID and all that, but there was a comment made that sometimes people get burnout when it comes to creation, evidence and versus evolution. This is our passion, and I'm going to say the one reason why I really push this is because at the end of the day, if there is no creator, you have no purpose. If there's no creator, we're animals, we can do what we want, there's no morality, so on and so forth. I do a lot of work in speaking in inner cities. I've lived around the world, lived in Southern Africa, Venezuela, done some work in China. At the end of the day, people are looking to be loved and have purpose. That's what we do in this ministry. So the other thing is, yes, creation versus evolution, this stuff can get really boring. And why? So I'll bring up one tidbit before, it's not in this presentation, but what was really exciting to me and a lot of the creation people in our organization is, if some of you aren't already aware, the government did a DNA genome project called ENCODE, and I think they stopped around 2013 or something like that. And as boring as genetics can be, they can be very exciting, because at the end of the day, and I like what Pastor started with, I have a huge presentation on racial issues. At the end of the day, the government ENCODE project actually admitted that we all come from the same male-female pair in our genetics. That means every one of us, any color, anything around the world, we share 99.99% of our DNA. The other 0.01% is, well, Pastor Boyd's taller than me. He may be better looking than me, but that's subjective, right? So the point being is that's it. That's the difference. The rest of us genetically, down to an infinitesimal level, share the same DNA. And here's the thing about creation versus evolution. There's so much exciting stuff to share with you people, and anywhere we go, it's awesome, and it's an absolute honor. So thank you guys for having us. And I will do my best, and especially the younger people too. If I get 10-year-olds, they're bouncing in the pews or whatever, I try to present stuff and I love this stuff. It can be very exciting. So the other problem I have is I do have a little ADHD. I'm 48. My wife will tell me all the time, honey, squirrel, let it go. Let's move on. So that being said, most of my presentations are very broad in scope. This one I've kind of focused, but broad as in there are so many elements of creation versus evolution in everyday life. Oh, by the way, raise your hand if you guys have noticed. I've got some cherry Cokes here. Anybody? Everybody know? Yeah. Anybody want one? They're cold. Oh, I got a hand there right away. Who else? Anybody else? Are you serious? All right. But wait. You got to ask Pastor if you can drink it. In here, you better ask him. I don't want any trouble with that. That's right. It's cold. It's cold too. Now, what's interesting? Raise your hand. Everybody, raise your hand. Whoever wanted one, raise your hand again. Whoever said I want the Coke, raise your hand. Raise it again. Now, come on, man. I see like 3, 4, whatever. There's more people that raise their hand. I want to see. Come on, because later there's going to be judge, jury, and execution based on you raising your hand. All right. So let's. I do want to say that there's so much exciting stuff to share, and at the end of the day, it does not take as much faith for me to understand God's creation that it took somebody 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the science is incredible, right? The things that we see daily, and I don't have anything in this presentation, but, we talk about children in the womb, right? Continually. Science continues to show that, yes, life begins right at inception. And, there's so many things to that. I can't even go into. What about astronomy? There's a picture I usually show that, and here's the story. Butler University in Indianapolis has an observatory. I take my kids there every couple of years, and last time we went, we were sitting there, and you get to look at the stars and everything, and there was this physics major, this young lady that was talking about, isn't it wonderful that we get to see new stars born all the time? And I said, whoa, what? I'm sitting there in this audience, and people are like, whoa, time out. We don't see new stars being born. Technology allows us to see the stars that were already there. So I got a picture of now with infrared technology, the Hubble telescope, any telescope we have, any observatory on the planet, we see what's already there based on technology expanding, right? It's not new or born. And so this is an idea that I called this young lady out, and I said, I got these young boys here, my sons, and you're sitting here spewing this stuff. That's not true. So she had to admit, she's like, well, you're right. We don't see stars actually being born. We see them revealed. I said, thank you. Much better. But the point being is that in every day of our lives, we're inundated with maybe little lies or big ones, but every day. And on the subject of creation evolution, I'll say this. This is the foundation of what Pastor speaks on here, right? If there's no creator and there's no creation, why are we gathering? Why are we gathering to sing praises to the creator of the universe, or asking the creator to change our lives and the problems that we've created for ourselves? I mean, if there is no God, there is nobody to help you with your problems, or to help you improve, or to change your life and your heart, right? So that's why we're here, and that's why we do what we do. Now, when I say my creation journey, I am not, part of our organization, we have several PhD nerd people, Jerry Bergman, super nerd, guy's written over 55 publications. I think it's 75. And these guys are so smart that, yes, sometimes it's hard to, catch on. Super smart. Bruce Malone, he's going to be speaking here. This guy, I love Bruce Malone's stuff. And he doesn't know this, but I'm not trying to sell his stuff, but he's got some great DVD series. Amazing. I make my kids watch them. And yes, make. Eventually, though, they come around like, that's pretty cool. Bruce is an amazing, this guy, I think he worked at Dow Chemical for like 30 years. He's a nerd, man. He's very good at presenting. So where I come in is I'm the guy on the street. There was a movie made called Slumdog Millionaire out of India. Anybody remember that movie? Raise your hand if you've seen it. I got one. Sir, I saw you nod your head. Does that mean you did see it? Oh, you heard of it? Okay. I got one person that saw it. Anybody else have seen it? Anybody? All right. The synopsis is this. Poor street kid, didn't get an education, but he won the Jeopardy show of India. And it wasn't because he was the smartest. It was because of his life experience. So if a question came up, he knew the answer because of something that had happened, some experience previous in his life. For example, they were asking the maker, of the original maker of the Colt 45, and he only knew it because he robbed some people when he was like 12 years old, and he used the Colt 45 to do it. So it's all these answers in his life experience. So this is where I come in, my life experience. So let's see which button is it? There's the pointer. There it is. All right. So in all my presentations, what I teach is cognitive thinking. All right, I know in presentations we all don't like to read, and I've been asked to whittle stuff down, so I have, but let's look at it. Cognitive thinking, the process by which one acquires knowledge through experience, thought, and sensory input. When a person, let me go back. And that's what I want. When a person uses their cognition to integrate various inputs to create an understanding, it's called cognitive thinking. Basically, people, common sense. You do not have to have a PhD to look at the world around you, put some pieces together, and think what is right and what is wrong, what makes sense and what doesn't. And so that's what I teach, because not all of us are going to have PhDs. Not all of us are going to be the Jerry Bergmans and Bruce Malones of our organization. And even Pastor here is now an honorary doctorate. He's a nerd too. So we have to bring all this down to the guy on the street level. Oops, wrong way. All right, we'll pass this, but at the end of the day, paying attention, remembering, processing, analyzing, reasoning, decision making. This is all stuff, if you're 5 years old and you can add 2 + 2, you've got some cognitive thinking skills. So let's start with one of my personal experiences. I'm a humble guy from Wyoming. I really miss Wyoming. I miss my state. My wife's from Indianapolis. I lost that bet. She's like, we're not moving to Wyoming. There's nothing to do in Wyoming. Yeah, well, in Indiana, it's flat, and there's nothing to do here. We have our own arguments. So anyway, I lost. But for a period of about 4 years, I started going to South Africa in 1996. My wife's a physician, and she had always wanted to do medical missions. We ended up moving to a little country called Swaziland, right down there, itty-bitty country. And if anybody's watching the news, Swaziland's been burning down, and so is South Africa in the last couple of months. Literally can't find food, rioting and looting all over the place. But yeah, this is where we lived for a while. So next one. Let's come down a little closer. Swaziland is a little bitty country. It's landlocked right there. And South Africa surrounds it, and then Mozambique. But what we're looking for is this little thing called Sodwana Bay right there. Get a better picture. There's the pinpoint right there, Sodwana Bay. So I had to drive through the Swaziland border and drive through a little bit of rural South Africa to get to there. And why did I go there? I got my scuba diving certificate there at about 100 meters. Sodwana Bay is one of the top 10 places in the world to scuba dive. Beautiful place. It's a national park, so you don't have people living out here. And here's the inlet here, this little road, but nothing's paved because this entire beach is for turtles when they come and lay their eggs. It's a beautiful place. And in this cove is where, you get on a boat and you come out here in this area and then you start scuba diving out here. Why is this relevant? Let's see if I can get this to, let's see if the, uh-oh. It's the old computer. It's doing nothing. Let's see. Had it working. Oh, there we go. I don't know why that took. All right, so here's a picture of a friend of mine. We're scuba diving on the, this is about 40 meters, I think. I love being under the ocean. It's kind of like being in the Grand Tetons. You just get to see God's creation. It's awesome. So let's see if we get here. So what's interesting is when you come on that little beach, you have to walk down this path. You park way over here, come down here, and there's this sign right here, and you can't see it real well, but it says, Coelacanths of Sodwana Bay. Coelacanth. You'll get to know that here in a minute. But what's interesting is, and I wish I'd gotten a picture of me standing there, but Coelacanth was a living fossil that was found in Sodwana Bay. And we'll get to the information about it. But once they found them, they started advertising this like crazy because now when I go to scuba dive, I'm with all these scientist nerds and biology people, and they're scuba diving with me. And I'm like, what are you doing here? They're like, well, we're here to see the coelacanth. Let's see if this works. All right. I don't think the volume's going to work. All right. And Pastor helped me get this running, but we're not going to get the volume. But this, that video's kind of dark. You're right, Pastor. Maybe when the scuba divers come along. There we go. There's the light. So the coelacanth lives at about a depth of about it never comes really higher than about 100 meters. It usually lives at 500 to 300 meters. And I started swimming with these things at about 100 meters. They're beautiful. They're slow moving. And here's what's interesting about them. They were extinct supposedly for about 65 million years. So if anybody knows what a living fossil is, it's where science says, oh, we used to think this thing had existed 65 million years ago, but hey, lo and behold, here it is. It lives. So what's interesting, and I'd heard of a coelacanth, but I never really studied these things until I run into these nerdy scientists on the beach as we're putting on our scuba gear. I'm like, what's so great about this thing? Well, see these fins right here? You see the big, that's not the tail, the side fins, the dorsal fin. Thank you, dorsal pastor. Pastor's a nerd. He knew what dorsal was. So, yeah, it goes in some interesting information here. But here's what's interesting about this coelacanth fish. Oh, see, look, they're pulling the fins out there. They have these bony, there it is. Awesome, I got it. They have a bony structure on those fins where the bones are actually inside the fin. So what evolution was showing me and telling me, all in my textbooks as I grew up before I got a chance to go to Sodwana Bay, South Africa, was that this was the link between ocean-dwelling and land-dwelling animals. Why? Because of the bony fins. Those fins are what eventually evolved into limbs that would become the dinosaur. Now, I've got the statistic up here by memory. I think they believe that the coelacanth started showing up on the scene probably about 400 million years ago. That's 200 million years before the dinosaurs showed up, supposedly, on the scene, right? So then the last known dated fossil of the coelacanth, they said was 65 million years ago. All right, so then it shows up. Now, here's what's interesting. We'll go to the next one here. I think this is a really pretty picture. Of what? Oh, okay, here we go. And I already said that previously, the coelacanth's existence had only ever been known from fossil records that showed the species had lived as long as 400 million years ago. It's a picture of a friend, one of the scientists, not a friend of mine, but had given me this. All right, so these things are pretty big. They can grow to about from here to here. Pretty pretty wide, pretty girthy. They're pretty ugly looking animals. But what's interesting is there was a coelacanth that was dredged up in a fishing net in 1938, but it was all messed up and they weren't quite sure what it was. The reason why is because it had blown up. These fish, they fit, like I said, they live at no higher than 100 meters of depth and they typically go deeper, so they explode when you pull them up because the carbon dioxide buildup and how they create their buoyancy. So it was dredged up in 1938, but not much thought about it. And then some divers in 2004 actually found a live family of coelacanth fish. So that's when things in Snoqualmie Bay started exploding with scientists and stuff showing up. I will show, this is what I would, you come around the corner of a reef, you run into this and it's that big. Yeah, it's pretty scary. These are ugly, ugly fish. But I want to get here. So here's the kicker. And I had always, once I got to Snoqualmie Bay, after spending time in South Africa, I asked this all the time. Why are there no transitional fossils in that 65 million year record? There's no evolutionary steps. So if these things, bones, were supposed to evolve and become whatever, a dinosaur, a horse, I don't care. Why don't we see any transitional fossils in that 65 million years that they had disappeared? It's as if the fossils didn't ever actually evolve, right? And then they just show up. But not only is this a living fossil, but it's a living fossil with no transitional evidence over that 65 million year span. When I have my talks with evolutionists, atheists, this is huge. And as boring as this subject may sound, now listen, it's not, I'm not that kind of person. I'm not going to jump into books and major in geology and biology and all that. That's just not my gig. But this is real life experience I bring to the table to, what's that old saying? A person with an experience is never at the mercy of a person with an argument. So I'm sitting there with this experience. I sit down with these, evolutionary nerds, and I ask that question. No answer. And now I'm giving you an example of one living fossil, but ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of living fossils with this same issue. There's no transitionary evidence, right? None whatsoever. And the reason why the coelacanth is huge, again, it has to do with the bony fins, right? Why are we still seeing these things and they never evolved? And now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean something hasn't evolved, because that's usually the response. But then where are the transitionary fossils of the ones that did evolve? And so this is huge. I can't even begin to tell you how. And I actually, Bruce Malone is speaking tonight. I actually presented this up in Michigan, and he came to me afterwards. He had a long talk. He's like, wow, it's really cool meeting somebody that's swam with the coelacanth, because we started talking about these implications. And those are the implications, ladies and gentlemen. So if you ever run in school or anywhere else and you run into a living fossil, this is exactly what you're dealing with. They show up after 65 million years of no transitionary fossils, right? And I don't have time to get into the layers, geology layers of the fossil record, because at the end of the day, that's what we're seeing in a lot of fossil records, that there is this massive jump of supposed millions and millions of years where nothing shows up. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the Achilles tendons for evolutionists to explain. It's a big gap. And the answer is, well, we'll find out later down the road. That's usually what I get. So let's go on. All right. Dinosaurs. Let's go back now. Snoqualmie Bay, that would be me. How old am I, man? So Snoqualmie Bay would be like my 30s. I started going to South Africa in my early 20s. Let's go back to when I'm like 9 years old. This is Dinosaur National Monument in Colorado. It's the Colorado-Utah border. And my buddy and I are 9 years old. And I'll fast forward. This buddy of mine is now the dean of West Point. I don't know what he's got. He's a nerd too. But this is a very, very pivotal moment in our evolution as Christians. We were 9 years old and we go to this place. Now look there. You go into this door on the side and you notice this angled cement here. We go to the next page. What it is, and that's not too great, but what it is about, it's probably about from this wall over to the upstairs, probably about that long, maybe 50 yards. And it was at 40, 50 yards long of a wall of just dinosaur bones that are caked inside of that wall. And what it is it's an ancient river eddy. So if you guys imagine there's a bend in a river and dead dinosaurs floated in this river, hit this corner or this turn in this river and got stuck, kind of like a log jam, and the water went on. And I think I've got it here. It was over 100 different dinosaurs. Yeah, here we go. On that wall alone, approximately 1,500 fossilized bones from 100 individual dinosaurs. And here's some of the dinosaurs there. By the way, I want to say real quick, there's more tourist locations that are very similar to this, like La Brea, tar pits in Los Angeles. There's a new show on TV called La Brea coming on. I just saw it, I was like, La Brea, like the tar pits? So this isn't a unique area. But the point being, let's go to this next page. Hopefully I can see it here real quick. Yes, all right. So my buddy and I, 9 years old, and we went there again when we were 12, I think. And imagine there's this tour guide right here, and there's this massive wall. And he's saying what I told you. It's a river, Eddie, and all these dinosaurs come in. I'm like, 100 different dinosaurs. You know, some are small, don't get me wrong. Some are large. They had a stegosaurus in there. You know, a couple ton dinosaur, massive bones. And he's like, I said, okay, wait a minute. With dinosaurs that big, now imagine this is a 9-year-old coming back to cognitive thinking. I'm not a PhD, but I'm asking a question. Dinosaurs that big, how big was this river that ended in this eddy? Oh, it was big. I was like, Mississippi? Oh, no, it had to be the size of like 50 Mississippis because these dinosaurs weigh tons. And these things are floating along. And I'm like, okay, so were they all eating together, at, you know, down the road here at, you know, someplace mowing some grass? No, this dinosaur, like based on our testing of the bones, this dinosaur here died in Mexico, and this dinosaur over here died in Canada, and this one died here. I'm like, so how did they all get together? And he goes, oh, well, there was a catastrophic event. I'm like, oh, with a lot of water? And he goes, yes. I'm like, so what you're saying is dinosaurs from 2 different hemispheres, remember I'm 9 years old, died from some catastrophic event, and there was so much water involved that it brought them together right here. And he goes, ladies and gentlemen, we need to move on to the next exhibit. And here's what's funny. My buddy now at West Point, we were both 9 years old, and it was very impressionable. Like, wait a minute, what are they hiding? Why, sir, why won't you answer the question? Why won't you? Now, by the time we're 12, we all have, a lot of us have kids in here. By the time I went from 9 to 12, I was a little more smart alecky by the time I was 12. So it wasn't the same tour guide, but I was, hey, sir, why aren't you exposing the flood, or something. I was just a kind of a loudmouth little kid, and that was the second time we went. But it was very impressionable, right? And I want to say that this is not a unique location, right? It's unique in the location, but there are other locations that have this kind of formation where many, many heavy tons of dinosaurs flowed together in some water from catastrophic event. Now, we can go and they talk about the meteor that hit. It was like 50 miles wide, and that's what caused it. Yeah, okay, again, I don't have enough time to get into those theories. But what I'm saying is, this is, again, Slumdog Millionaire. I'm not a genius, but I ran into this, and I went, there's many of these locations around the world where you find these bunched up dinosaurs, right? And if they weigh tons, these big, big rivers that brought them together. So do I have trust issues? Absolutely. Now, I got a question for those of you that took the Coke from me, sir, ma'am. Got a question. Anybody thinks Coke is healthy for them? Raise your hand. Well, hey, all your friends are looking at you, dude. They just turned and looked at you. They waiting for an answer. All right, so we just had the Olympics, right? There's a young man named Alec Yoder. I'm really good friends with him and his family. He just competed on the pommel horse. Man, he was 6th place. He could have gotten gold. The week prior, he could have won. He qualified for the medal team, got in. Now, if you talk to Alec, he's an athlete. Does Alec drink Coke? No. So let's talk about that. Coke, sir, what are you drinking? I'm just curious what that is. Flavored water, okay. That guy, she was sitting right there, so I was like, what are you drinking? So at the end of the day, let's talk about Coke. Anybody here use any kind of a soda product to, clean the stems on the batteries? Anybody? Sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, sir. So what that is acid. And we take that into our bodies, right? And how does your body offset that acid? With the calcium in your bones. As an athlete, Alec's like, I'm not touching that stuff. I need my bones if I'm competing at the Olympic level. But isn't it funny how much junk that we put into our bodies, right? A little bit of pop here, a little fast food there, and isn't it funny when we talk about what we take in intellectually or spiritually, right? So I've got these are a couple, I've got drop bomb moments all through my presentation, so does Bruce and everybody else that presents in this organization. the end of the day, we take this little stuff in, right? How much time do you spend, garbage in, garbage out, right? I'm sure Pastor preaches to this, teaches this to you guys over the years. How much time are you putting in the Word? How much time are you putting into, prayer? How much time do you, I don't know, we could get down to all kinds of levels. How much time do you spend with your family versus, people maybe you shouldn't be spending time? I grew up with a bad family. Spending time with my family is probably not the best idea. But how much time do you spend with good influences? This is what I'm talking about. This is the point. Now, I've got another presentation with Coke. Did anybody see Super Size Me? That guy that ate McDonald's 3 times a day for a month just to see what would happen? And his kidneys start failing on day 22. So the point being is that, yes, and of course, Bruce, one time, we had a presentation in Michigan, and Bruce, I had given Coke out to a couple people. They put it in the church refrigerator. We're all eating lunch, and Bruce actually starts drinking the Coke that was in the refrigerator. I'm like, Bruce, where'd you get that? I think that's the one I passed out. And he goes, moderation, Dave. Cluck, cluck, moderation in all things. I'm like, okay, Bruce. So then I didn't get one this morning. I was trying to get one on my way here, but you guys know also when we get those boxes of cereal, you guys look young. Any college students? Anybody? No college students? Are you guys out of college? High school. Raise your hand if you're in high school. They don't know the pain. All right. So when I was in college, you ain't got much money, and you're trying to, you grabbing them box of cornflakes or whatever, you open that box, and you know how it's like half full? You guys know what I'm talking about? Where are we in our society where we've gotten to the point where we accept that? Now, it could be a bag of chips. My son had some Cheez-Its, right? A little box opened up. Man, it was like half full. I'm like, what a ripoff. And so we've gotten to the point in our culture where we accept that, right? So let me ask you people, when we talk about this kind of stuff, how far we've come to accept, right, a lot of the lies that are fed to us, or we don't dig deep to find out. Now listen, I had to go to Sedwana Bay, right, to learn about the coelacanth. And let me tell you, because of the experiences, and I've smuggled Bibles in China. I was in Venezuela after a coup attempt. I've been around. And my wife's a physician, so the things we've seen around the world, she dealt with leprosy. I was like, leprosy? I thought that was gone. No, dude, leprosy still exists. So there's a lot of those experiences, and I'm going to tell you with the coelacanth, this is where, brothers and sisters, you got to pray for me, because when I deal with atheists, I think Pastor Boyd and I get in trouble, because there's this attitude of like, you just want to throw this at somebody and be like, shut up. And Bruce Malone's like, no, you got to reach them in love, man. You got to reach them in love. I agree. You're right. And what we're talking about, and Bruce does a great job of this, he talks about the indoctrination of our educational systems and how over years and years and years, the old saying, if a lie is told over and over, enough, it becomes the truth, right? So when I do this coelacanth thing and I throw it out, evolutionists are like, oh, they're digging so hard for an answer to why there is no transitional fossil during that 65 million years. I need an answer. There's got to be an answer. I'm panicking. I don't know what to do. Dude, I got a lot of examples. Watch this real quick. Oh, sweet. We got volume. All right, listen.
If you were to follow a busy doctor as he makes his daily round of calls, you'd find yourself having a mighty busy time keeping up with him. Time out for many men of medicine usually means just long enough to enjoy a cigarette. And because they know what a pleasure it is to smoke a mild, good-tasting cigarette, they're particular about the brand they choose. In a repeated national survey, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels for the next 30 days and see what a difference it makes in your smoking enjoyment? See how Camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
All right. Now, I need to qualify something here. I've shown this before, and I had this lady come up to me. She goes, "You're not actually advocating smoking, are you?" I'm like, "No, ladies and gentlemen, let me put this loud and clear. Smoking is bad." Now, this is a commercial from 1944. Let's talk about perspective, education. Let's fast forward. You guys remember the late 80s and 90s when they started pushing the truth.org ads, what smoking does and blah, blah, blah. Well, what happened between 1944 and the 90s, or even now? What was some truth exposed or perspective changed? I don't know, but what I'm telling you is, do I have trust issues? And you kind of wonder why. There were so many things with that commercial that are so wrong. And I could, there's more stories. My wife, for example, I show her that, and she's like, why is the nurse got to be female? why is it? And my wife's black, and she's like, and why the doctor can't be black? I'm like, dude, 1944, what do you want? So, and there's so many talks to have on that. But let's get to the next one. This may be really offensive. Do we get, yes, thank you.
They sure work hard, don't they, honey?
Yeah? I hate to see them work so hard.
Yeah, me too. Let's go around back where we can't see them.
Gee, we ought to do something, Fred.
Okay? How's about taking that?
Hey, I got a better idea. Let's take a Winston break.
That's it! Winston is the one filter cigarette that delivers flavor 20 times a pack. Winston's got that filter blend.
Yeah, Fred. Filter blend makes the big taste difference, and only Winston has it up front where it counts. Here, ahead of the pure white filter. Winston packs rich tobacco, specially selected and specially processed for good flavor in filter smoking.
Yeah, Barney, Winston tastes good like a cigarette.
Sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a children's cartoon, the Flintstones, of course, before Technicolor started adding color to it. Isn't that interesting? And the period of time it took to now get the point across that, cigarettes are bad, right? All right, last quick story here, and I'll do a little Q&A. Anybody know this lady, Jane Goodall? Pastor, a few other people. When I lived in South Africa, I got to meet her. And funny story, we took our kids, she owns a place called Chimp Eden, where they take chimpanzees and gorillas that there's a lot of military conflicts, and so you'll have a gorilla with a missing arm, stuff like that. She takes them in, rehabilitates them, and then if they can't be sent out back in the wild, keeps them there. So you get to take your kids. So we're walking along, we're coming through this area, and there's this old white lady with all these black dudes. And I'm like, and just contrast, right? So it caught my eye. I was like, what's that lady doing? Baby. And my wife's like, I think that's Jane Goodall. I'm like, no way. So I went over and I interrupted the meeting. My wife's like, honey, stop, you're embarrassing me. And I'm like, but it's Jane Goodall. Jane, I start shaking her hand. I'm like, man, we got to talk. And she's like, right. And then but I ended up buying her book, A Reason for Hope, right? Now here's what's interesting. Jane Goodall was the monkey lady. She's the one when everybody found the missing link, they go to Jane and be like, hey, Jane, what do you think of this? She's like, yeah, sounds good. Looks good to me. I mean, yeah, missing link, evolution, whatever. In this book, though, she actually said she is not opposed to intelligent design and tends to side in that direction. She was more than willing to admit all of the botched attempts in the last 100 years at academia proving evolution. As a result, she wrote this book, and in it saying, it honestly didn't matter how we humans got to be the way we are, whether evolution or special creation was responsible. So basically, she is an agnostic. But she basically said, look, I'm tired. I'm tired of people coming to me, and I sign off, and then comes out it was a lie, right? And so now she's like, I don't care. Now here's what's interesting. I was having a discussion with and I'm in IT. I had another IT nerd. We were talking, and he was talking about evolution. He brought up Jane Goodall. I was like, man, look, read Jane Goodall's stuff. She'll tell you. I mean, there's all kinds of, I'm like, Jane? Coming back to the Slumdog Millionaire scenario, I'm like, I'm not that smart. I'm not the smartest, sandwich on the tree or whatever you call it. But see what I did there? So anyway, I said, I've met Jane. And he goes, have you? I'm like, yeah. And guess what she said? So I show this to him, and I actually own the book, and I brought it to work the next day. I was like, bam. Now, I don't know that was love, but I did it. And you know what he said? He goes, right away, the day before, he's like, look at Jane Goodall. Listen to her stuff. That next day, I show him the book and the quote, and he goes, well, then she's an idiot. Dude, you're changing your story, and now you don't know what to say because your A-team, Jane Goodall, actually sides with my side, so you better go find someone else. And yeah, that's exactly how the conversation went. I mean, he didn't change his mind in any way. And the last thing here real quick, when I talk about, over the years, I was required in different science classes to do some research, write papers, and all this on missing links. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen, and the one quick story is, I think it was 8th grade, and I had to do one on Piltdown Man was the missing link. And this was in 1988 or 89, way back. So what had happened was I had to go, there was no internet, go to the encyclopedias at the library, come to find out Piltdown Man was a fraud. It was actually found in 1923, some nerdy guy over in England. Oh, look, the missing link, and he got paid money and accolades. 1954 rolls around, turns out it was a fraud. So the guy lied. Now, that's funny because that was found in 1954, but I had a science book in 1988 in 8th grade that said Piltdown Man is the missing link. Then I go to the library, the encyclopedia says, nope, Piltdown Man is a fraud. I go to my teacher and I'm like, dude, I'm not writing a paper on this. It's a lie. So now one of my favorite books by nerd Jerry Bergman in our group, Evolution's Blunders, Frauds, and Forgeries. For you kids in high school back there and anybody else in here, it will put you to sleep. It's very boring. But if you're into it, the data is all there, and that's exactly my point. The data is there for there is no missing link. There has not been any discovered. The latest one that everybody hangs on to is Lucy, and I could spend an hour just shredding that one. So let me see here real quick. I think I'm done. Yes. Pastor said can I take 10 minutes for some Q&A? Pastor Boyd? Ladies and gentlemen, on anything I've shared or anything tangential, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I would love to do my best to answer them. And again, I want to say this. I would love for Pastor to invite us back every year because we want to share knowledge and we want to present that to you guys in the best way possible. And if you guys have questions, so this is what and helps us create material. Sir.
Hey, thanks for your great presentation. You mentioned. Oh, I'm Brent Zenhofer. Thank you for being here.
How old are you?
I'm 46.
Where were you educated?
Ball State.
Are you married?
Yes.
Okay. Give us the whole story.
Okay. You mentioned briefly about astronomy and what appears to be star formation. And I hear astronomers talk about that a lot. We see this place where all these stars are being born. What are we really seeing there? What's going on?
Okay, so I have one of my presentations I like a lot. There's a formation called the Pillars of Creation. Right? It's very famous. You look in books, you can Google it, Pillars of Creation. It looks like two cloud-like pillars, right? And a famous picture from the 90s, all right? But now the Pillars of Creation, when you see a picture, the cloudiness is gone, and now you see thousands and millions of stars behind those formations. So those formations, the cloudy stuff, all right, that hides those stars, right? So now the question is, what is that stuff? And that stuff there's a lot of different things, space debris, maybe a former star that went supernova that left debris, several, right? Some galaxies in the way or whatever, but it's let's just call it cloudy stuff. So what happens is, because of infrared technology, now we can see past that, I call it insignificant dusty stuff, but you see past and what's behind it, right? And that's the stars. And they're already there. Right? So the question is, and there's a lot of great stuff out there, and like, what is the cloud stuff? What does it represent? What is it made up of? Right? And that's, like, again, a lot of theories out there of, a former star exploding or a disbanding galaxy or, different things that are in the way of the stars that are there. So that's actually a great subject. Cool stuff. I love astronomy. Maybe somebody won't ask, but my biggest hang-up with creation evolution was light speed, right? That's the one thing that held me back. Like, this has got to be answered. I got the geology and the dinosaur stuff and, biology. There's so much to me that was like, this is obvious creation. But I said, does somebody have an answer about starlight, right? And there's some great theories out there. Dr. Lyle, I like his stuff a lot. Once that stuff, I was presented with that, I sunk my teeth into, went on another tangent on that, and it was awesome. There's great stuff. I'm sorry, ADHD. Did I answer your question? Get the mic, ask again.
Yeah, I think you did. So we see stars occasionally like dying, like there's places in the sky where
we see stars.
There used to be a star, but there's not one anymore. But we haven't found a place where there is a star, but there didn't used to be. Is that correct?
So the answer is yes, because of technology. That's when they say, oh, look, this star wasn't there before. but it's because we couldn't see it. That's the bottom line, that we have never, ever seen a star being born. Now, here's what's interesting is, you know, instantaneous. Oh, we put a infrared lens on the Hubble, and then bam, there's a star. We seen anything develop or grow or get bigger. And speaking on stars, and maybe Bruce will talk about this, any astronomy nerds besides yourself, sir? Anybody in here that likes stars? I'm actually staring at the high school students to see if any of them care. Our hydrogen in the world to be created to begin with. If gas does not collect and intensify in density, and it actually expands, whole nother great subject. It's absolutely awesome. All right. Any other questions? I'll take one more question because of time. Are you chickens? Okay, two more questions. You chickens, and I'm pointing to high school students. Yeah, I'm picking on you because you guys, I don't know, can we trust the question from a guy that wants to drink Coke and he knows it's bad for him?
I don't know.
Yeah. Name?
My name is Jared, and so when you get into a controversial thing with evolutionists, how would you start to take that up? Like, say we're talking about dinosaurs and they have all these points and views, and you're not so intelligent and you don't know everything that a lot of other people know, and you're just trying to prove your point. How would you go about doing that?
Okay, great question. So number one, you got to take into account personality, my personality. Man, I've been shot at. I've been robbed by cops. You know, I'll be honest. I'm very abrasive. My wife said, you know, we just had our 20-year anniversary. She's like, baby, you've come a long way. So what I'm saying is, you probably don't want to be me and be very confrontational. Let's be honest. That does not help. You know, it doesn't help to argue with people. At the end of the day, you win through relationship building, right? Now, for discussions, right? I mean, the first thing, it sounds like you're being humble. And I think we should all be humble and say there's always more that we can learn. The Bible says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, be nerds, man. You know, go, find stuff, dig, get into the stems. You know, always start with a bit of humility, though, and we don't know it all. So that's a place to start, because here's the other thing. I do want to say this. I don't go to churches anymore to give silver bullets, like to you. I don't want to say, here's that one silver bullet. You can go to that atheist friend of yours and shoot him right in the leg, you know, because at the end of the day, it's about relationship and love and, you know, walking your walk, right? So what if you have that silver bullet argument? Because of our pride as in humans, and Pastor could probably really talk to you about all this. I mean, right away, people stand up defensively, and they want to dig in more into their side. I mean, we see it now politically, right? You know, I mean, people just want to dig in. So I don't want to give you a silver bullet, but I will say this. You have some humility, but start studying. I mean, there's some great material out there to start with. Bruce Malone will be here. He has great books. I bought a bunch of his stuff. Start studying that. And I would say, as I started out in this talk, cognitive thinking. Young man, if you know what 2 + 2 is and you can read these slides, you have the foundation to be anything you want. You have the foundation to go anywhere you want, to dig as far as you want, and to go as high as you want educationally. That being said, you have the ability, everybody has the ability to really look into this stuff. Like, hey, that dude was speaking today, I think he's lying. Well, look it up. You know, catch me in a lie. And so that's basically what I'm saying is study. And in humility, you don't have to have that silver bullet in that moment. Wait for the next one. You know, go do some studying on it. Say to this person that you're having this discussion with, like, hey, listen, I don't know it all. There's some gaps. There's some holes here. I need to look into that. I'll get back to you. You know, because when I give the coelacanth, now all of a sudden the atheist's running out looking for information. And if he comes back, great, let's talk. You know, because maybe I'll learn something additional about that point of view that I need to learn before I can have continued discussions, right? And anything that takes time, anything that's worth it takes time. You're not going to have this massive amount of knowledge in this presentation, right? It's kind of like the Bible. You're not going to get everything in a Sunday. That's why there's got to be that consistency in the Word and studying and, you know, rubbing elbows with your, it's iron sharpening iron. It takes time. So I've given you some information. Maybe I've hit some of you guys somewhere in your brain. You're like, let me look into that, or something that's interesting. Slowly go that direction. And I would say in general, don't look for that silver bullet to go beat your friend up. Don't do that. And I've done it so often just because I hate injustice, I hate lying, but Jesus is way better at it than I was in dealing with it, and I'm trying to be better. All right. Uh-oh. I still can't hear him. Sir, we're going to have your name, rank, serial number. Is that lovely lady next to you? Is that wife? Friend? You're dating? How long y'all been together? Pastor Steve, the rescue.
My name is Bob Benjamin. I'm a graduate of Bowling Green State University with Jerry Bergman before he arrived. I'm
Awesome.
also been married for 58 years to my brides. I'm not going to give you my serial number. I've also taught at Taylor University where you were while you were there. So.
Yes, sir. 25th anniversary will be this year. So you were there 25 years ago.
Yes, I was.
Awesome.
I taught accounting.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
The question is, in your presentations, do you ever talk about the systems of the human body and how they must be complete and everything must be there, nothing missing, nothing ill-placed, in order to show that things just can't gradually change, but they have to be 100% complete and ready to go?
Yes, sir. The answer, let me go back to the beginning of my presentation when I said, A, there's a lot of stuff out there that's super awesome but really boring, and B, there's just so much stuff out there. So the human body is awesome. My wife, going through medical school, she became a stronger Christian because of seeing what the human body does and whatever. But the bigger subject for me on the human body is it's what we call genetic entropy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are breaking down. We're not evolving better. With each generation, when you talk about the systems that work together, one of the codes in the genome, it gets misrepresented and mistyped, and we're breaking down. And that's a great subject. But I want to emphasize this. Yes, sir, that the human body, ladies and gentlemen, young people, the human body is a testament to a creator because of so many systems, how complex they are. And if I could get into, I would never have the time. There's a guy, Pastor, Stephen Meyer. Thank you. I keep remembering. Stephen Meyer he's got a place called Discovery Institute in Seattle, out of Seattle, Washington. Yeah. I made my son sit down. I got a 10-year-old and a 17-year-old, and we're going through this curriculum, and it took about a year. We could sit down every couple of nights, and part of the curriculum was the human body and the complexity, and we got down to the genome, the mapping. So, sir, there's some of that in my presentations. My issue is that I want Pastor to invite us back without me boring people to death, and to the high school people, I am going to admit, some of this stuff, it's absolutely astonishing if you dig into it. But how long could you sit here and listen to me talk about genome mapping and the intricacies of it, right?